Hey everyone, my name is Sean, and in today's video we're going to be doing a detailed breakdown and deck profile for Mekk-Knight Invoked. There is a lot to cover into this video, so let's get straight to it. Before we do start, I will just say that there is also a budget version of a list for this build towards the end of the video, so feel free to use the chapters down below if you want to navigate your way towards just sampling this deck and trying it out. We're going to start off with the background and introduce the archetype to you. Who are the Mekk-Knights and who are the invoked monsters? Well, it's a combination of two archetypes. The Mekk-Knights you may already be familiar with, as they have a really good story mode available in solo mode. If you haven't seen it, go and check their chapter out. It is probably the best chapter that Konami has written for the game. But in case you don't know who they are a variety of light-based monsters that can special summon themselves to the field if there are two or more cards in the same column. They're very much like the old school card Cyber Dragon, where you can summon out a bunch of big monsters very easily as long as you can make columns on the field. Their key cards are things like Mekk-Knight Purple Nightfall, which is their main extender and searcher for the deck, and they also have a couple of good cards. Now, where they are a bit lacking is in their extra deck options, as they don't really have too many viable options to play, and you wouldn't even be able to maximize your extra deck with just these cards alone. Where things get a bit more interesting is when you combine them with a different archetype, and that is called the Invoked archetype. The Invoked monsters are a fusion-based archetype that revolve around this card, Alistair the Invoker. Alistair the Invoker is one of the best normal summons in the game, and when you normal summon him, he is able to search out a polymerization style fusion spell called Invocation. This will let you do fusion summons and allow you to go to an array of different fusion monsters using Alistair and a different attribute. The main one we're mostly interested in here is Invoked Mekaba, who requires Alistair and a light monster, and this is where there's a lot of synergy between the Invoked archetype and the Mekk-Knights, as the Mekk-Knights are all light monsters, which can be good materials with Alistair to go and make your Invoked Mekaba, which can be a very powerful card. But we're going to be utilizing a variety of these, so let's go into the profile, and let's start off by talking about what are the starters for this archetype. Now, for the starters of this archetype, what you should know is that this deck is primarily based on going second, not first. As you have a deck full of a lot of easy to summon, high attack monsters, you want to push the game and do damage as fast as you can. So we have 14 cards. We have 3 copies of Alistair the Invoker, which when normal summons gets your polymerization invocation spell. Then we have double copies of Mekk-Knight Blue Sky, or when this card is special summoned, can add Mekk-Knight monsters from your deck with different names equal to the number of your opponent's cards in the column. So it's kind of a searcher, and it can search out cards like Indigo Eclipse. Indigo Eclipse is a funny extender where when this card is on the field, you can move it from one column to another column, allowing you to summon multiple monsters to the same column in a single turn. And then you have Mekk-Knight Purple Nightfall, easily the best Mekk-Knight monster, where this card can, as a quick effect, to be able to banish itself, and then to add one Mekk-Knight monster from your deck to your hand, and it's very easy to use. Meaning that it's a quick effect, it's very versatile, and that is why we're playing 3 copies of it. Now, Alistair the Invoker can be searched out using a card called Magical Meltdown. This is a field spell card, which when this is activated can add Alistair the Invoker. And this is a really good field spell card because it also gives you protection so that your fusion summons cannot be negated. So to search out Magical Meltdown, we are playing 1 copy of Terraforming, and then just to give us a little bit of a push, and also to bring our percentage starter percentage over 90%. I've also got 2 copies of Pot of Desires, banish 10 to draw 2, and as you're trying to kind of go for game ASAP, having 2 cards is better than having 10 cards in your deck, so this is always really good. We're going to move on from here and go on to extenders, cards which allow you to continue your plays but require a bit of setup in order to get there. And so the extenders that we're using are as follows. First of all the Mekk-Knights are extenders. They're technically extender cards because they require cards to be in columns before you can summon them to the field. You can't just straight away immediately put them out. Now there are ways in this deck to make your own columns, but mostly because we're going second, we're going to try and make them using our opponent's cards to take advantage of that. Invocation is also a extender as it is a fusion spell card, and that allows you to, what's great about Invocation is that it allows you to use cards in your graveyard to do your fusion summon. So most of the time you're going to use an Alistair in your graveyard, and then you can use any element monster or any attribute monster in either player's graveyard. Now most of the time we're going to go for light monsters, which you can generate yourself, but you could also use cards in your opponent's graveyard, such as say using their light Eldritch monster, or using one of their wind based Tri-Brigade cards, or using a light based Drytron monster if that is appealing to you. There's also generic cards like Ash Blossom that can be used, which normally will sit in the graveyard, and Maxi once they've been used that you can go ahead and use. So Invocation is very good in the current format. Then we are also playing 3 copies of Maxi, one of the best hand traps in the current game. I use this as an extender. I don't carry it towards my main hand trap lineup. This is to draw into more cards that we're going to use to break our opponent's board. Now, other extenders we have in the extra deck is 1 copy of Mekk-Knight of the Morning Star. This is the Mekk-Knight Link 2, which when it is link summoned, you can discard 1 Mekk-Knight monster to add another Royal Legacy card. We're not going to use that at all. You're not going to really be able to use that effect in this current build. In other versions you may be able to, but I've had to cut a lot of the Mekk-Knight cards down to a very small amount. But what is nice about this card is that while this card is on the field, if your opponent battles a Mekk-Knight monster in a card that's a different column, your monster will not take any damage or be destroyed by that battle. So it's a good little protection effect, but you don't really need that card, to be honest. And then there's Cross Sheep as well. Cross Sheep is nice because we are playing fusion monsters. While this card is on the field, if you summon a fusion monster to a zone it points to, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard. This could mostly be a hand trap, it could be Alistair, and this helps you link climb a little bit easier into a link 3 or a link 4. And then we're playing Verte Anaconda as we are playing a fusion card. This actually, you don't need Verte Anaconda. I don't think it works with Invocation, so you can't actually use Verte Anaconda. This is mostly for when we do builds where we're going to have, say, Destiny Phoenix Enforcer comes out, you're going to want to run this card. But actually, you don't really need to use it, but it's good to be aware of. If you have the Neo's Fusion package, you can maybe do that as well with this card. But you don't need Verte Anaconda. Now, because we're going second, it is very important that we have ways to break our opponent's board. So we're now going to look at removal cards, what we can use to get rid of the cards on our opponent's field. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. We're going to go to protection first, because we're going to look at hand traps, and hand traps are technically protection cards, as they are kind of negates. So in a nutshell, when you are playing this game, and you're playing Mekk-Knight Invoked, you are trying to stop your opponent from setting up a board as much as you can using your hand traps, and we are using a lot of protection cards to help us with that. So of course we have our 3 Maxis, but then we're using Maxis to draw into other cards. So your opponent's going to go first, and you want to kind of stop them setting up, and so we're going to be trying to use cards that have very high impact early in the duel, but you don't necessarily want to run multiple copies of them so that you so they brick you later on. So we have 3 Maxi along with 2 copies of Gamma, very powerful, can negate and destroy a monster effect and summons a driver out of your deck, so it thins your deck out a bit. Draw and Lock Board, very good against some matchups. Against Drytron and certain Tri-Brigade matchups, like Tri-Brigade Zodiac, Draw and Lock Board is very good. There's a lot of powerful draw engines right now, and Draw and Lock Board just says, nope, no drawing for you after they've drawn 1 card. Doesn't always work against other decks like Eldritch though, and Eldritch is a massive competitor right now, so I wouldn't play Draw and Lock Board in multiples, but having 1 early on can be a really good game-breaking card. Similarly, Lancia, Artifact Lancia makes it so that neither player can banish during the turn for the rest of the turn. This is really good against Tri-Brigade. It basically shuts down their turn because they can't do their link summon via their effect. It's also good against some cards in Drytron, so it's not completely dead there. And in Eldritch, they can't banish their cards from the graveyard to search out more cards in the end phase. So it has some applications, but against Tri-Brigade Zodiac and certain other banish-based decks, this card is really good. Similarly, we have Nibiru, big rocky smashy boy, tributes after your opponent's on 5 summons, tribute all monsters on the field. Really good earlier on against Drytron if they haven't got their Herald of Ultimateness out. Great against things like Tri-Brigade. And great against decks that like to spam monsters. Not that good against Eldritch, unfortunately. So we are hoping that we are either going to draw 1, or if we don't draw it, we don't need to see it later on. So it is what it is. Then we've got more generic things. Ash Blossom, easily the most popular card in the game right now. Ash Blossom is good because it works against so many decks, but it also counters Gamma and it counters Maxi. So Ash Blossom is very, very versatile. Can be used against a load of cards, as can also Infinite Impermanence. Very just easy to use negate, can be used more than once per turn, so if you draw more than one of these, you can use them. Works great against things like Drytron when you're doing against their XZ's monster, it works really well against, and also cards against Tri Brigade, it can work really good against their cards as well to stop them from doing their Link Summon. So it has a lot of generic applications, and of course if you set it to the field, you can also use it as a spell and trap negate as well, so it's very, very versatile. We also have, I think I've covered most of the hand traps, but we also have 2 Call by the Grave to protect yourself from being hand trapped. As you're playing things like Alistair, you are going to be searching out from your deck, and so you are vulnerable to things like Ash Blossom. Your opponent's probably going to be playing Maxi against you, so you want to negate their hand traps and have a little bit of graveyard control. Even if they're not playing hand traps and they're playing like Eldritch with mostly trap based cards, you can use this against an Eldritch monster in the graveyard so they can't loop it, and if you manage to get rid of 2 of those Eldritch cards, you're on your way to victory, because if they only have 1 left, it's going to be much harder for them to win. And similarly, Solemn Strike. Solemn Strike is an amazing card in the format right now. I would love to play more of it, but I think 1 is just enough. This is a great counter to cards like Herald of Ultimateness because it is a spell speed free card. So if your opponent does manage to get out their infinite negate monster, you can set this card, try not to do anything, and then during their turn bait out a negate, and then as soon as they do, flip over Strike, and then they won't be able to chain Ultimateness to this because Strike is a faster spell speed, and it can only be chained by counter trap. So it's really, really good right now. Also in the extra deck we have Invoked Mekk-Knight. This is part of your win condition. You want to kind of break your opponent's board and then pop down a Mekk-Knight, so any last lingering effects you can negate. Mekk-Knight requires that you discard a monster, spell, or trap card to negate and banish the same type of card that your opponent's activating. Now, you're not often going to be able to use this for traps for the current build, but we do have other forms of trap removal to kind of help with that. But for spells and definitely for monster effects, it's very, very good. Very, very good card. So now that we talked about protection cards, I want to look at removal cards that are going to help you break your board, because we can't just rely on hand traps. And one of the biggest differences between Eldritch, one of the biggest difference between old school Invoked Mekk-Knight Invoked is that they relied mostly on just hand traps, but nowadays we are using removal cards that are high impact as well. And there's some other options you can play as well. So we have 1 copy of a Lightning Storm. Again, a card that you don't really want to have in the grind game, especially because you're playing a field spell. You're going to have a face-up card on the field. So you either want to draw this card early, play it, bait out an interruption, or clear out their back row so you can set up your game, and then you don't want to see this card again. In a similar fashion, we have Evenly Matched. Again, we don't want cards that can brick, so rather than playing multiple Evenly or playing multiple Lightning Storm, we're going to use our Maxi to try and draw into these cards, and then you want to go to battle phase, end the battle phase, play Evenly Matched, and banish as many cards on the field as possible. And then just for a little bit of versatility, we've got Cosmic Cyclone, a card that's very, very relevant in the current meta. It's good against things like Tri Brigade Revolt, if they just set it so you can chain this and get rid of that card. Or it's really, really good against Eldritch and a lot of their cards because they float and they have graveyard based effects as well. So Cosmic Cyclone is really nice in the current format. But the main appeal here is definitely Forbidden Droplet, a card that I almost think is a requirement in the current format because how good Drytron is. It allows you to send any number of cards from your hand and or field to the graveyard to choose that many effect monsters your opponent controls, and until the end of the turn their attack is halved and also their effects are negated. Your opponent cannot respond to this with the same type of cards as that was sent to activate this card. Forbidden Droplet is very, very versatile. You can play something like Lightning Storm, chain Droplet, and then Droplet will at least have 1 negate, and because this card was going to go to the graveyard anyway, it doesn't matter if you send it because it's already activated and you've got the effect off. But then you also definitely want to use this with monsters so that you can negate one of them big board monster effects, and it doesn't target as well, so it's very, very good. Because you really want to see this card early on, you can't, that is why we're playing multiples of this in free. Now another card that's very similar to this, if you have it and you would rather play that, that works almost just as well, is Dark Ruler No More. I don't have any copies of this, but I don't think I necessarily need it, but Dark Rune No More is great for negating all effects of face-up monsters on the board as well. It doesn't half their attack, which is relevant against certain cards like I forgot the name of the Drytron card, but the one that has 4,000 attack. So it's good against to be a Forbidden Droplets a little bit better in that way, and Droplets is a quick play spell, but Dark Rune No More works just as well. And then in our extra deck we have some removal. We have Raijin, which can flip a monster face down. Wind is a very relevant element right now because of Tri Brigade, so we're doing that. Purgatrio, good to use if they have an Ash Blossom or your own Ash Blossom. Purgatrio is great because it can attack all cards your opponent controls and gets 200 attack for each card your opponent controls. So with one card it's 2500, 2, 27. If your opponent has 3 cards it's 29. If they have 4 cards on the field it's above 3000, and it can attack every single monster your opponent controls. And if there's any cards in defense, which a lot of cards do like to be, like in Drytron, then it does piercing damage as well. So it's really cool. Not always viable, but pretty good. Because a Max Z is very popular, we're also doing an Earth Invoke monster, and that's Magalenica. It's just a 3000 beater, 3300 defense. It's just a beat stick, 3000 attack. You don't really go into this card, but I put it in just so that in case that you have to go into this card, you have the option to be able to do so. And then we have double Nightmare Phoenix, the spell and trap removal card, and Nightmare Unicorn. And also we have Access Code Talker, which is very easy to make in this deck. And Access Code Talker is part of your win condition because it can get up to 5300 attack quite easily, and then it can destroy cards on the field that your opponent cannot respond to the activation of this card. So ideally you want to use these cards up here, use your hand traps, reduce your opponent to a simplified game state, and then you want to pop down an Access Code Talker, break their board, and then you are laughing and you're going to win the game. So we're now going to move on from those sections, and we're going to talk about win condition for the deck and what that looks like. So the win condition for the deck as follows, just loading it up, is going to be basically, like I said, you're going to be trying to use your hand traps and use your board breaker cards to reduce the amount of resources your opponent has, and then you want to use your high attack Mekk-Knights combined with your invoke monsters, things like Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, or Access Code Talker, to just push for game as fast as possible. And even if you don't go for game and you don't win that turn, then you have cards like Mekka to set up a negate in the next turn, and then you might have other cards like other hand traps or Solemn Strike to help you get there as well. So that in a nutshell is the win condition. So let's go into the profile now and look at the deck overall as one big list. So this is what it looks like. We have one Cyframe driver, engine requirement card, one Drone Lockbird, triple Max C, double Gamma, 3 Ash. We have triple Alistar, one Lancia, double Blue Sky, one Indigo Eclipse, and 3 purple Nightfall. You can maybe run more Mekk-Knights than this, but this is the minimum that I would run at this ratio. So if you want to add more, feel free to, but there's not that much space in my opinion. You have Nibiru at 1, Terraforming, double Desires, double Invocation, 1 Lightning Storm, double Magical Meltdown, double Cosmic Cyclone. Again, you can just choose one of these if you want to play 40 and leave that out. That's up to you. Call by the Grave is at 2, 3 Forbidden Droplet, 1 Evenly Matched, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 1 Solemn Strike. Then for the extra deck we have 1 Raijin, 1 Purgatrio, 1 Magalenica, 3 Mekka, 1 Artemis, double Phoenix, 1 Mekk-Knight, take that out, you don't need that. 1 Cross Sheep, again you don't really need Cross Sheep, and you don't need Verte Anaconda. Unicorn, Blackluster Soldier, Access Code Talker. If I was going to add a couple more cards, I would probably play things like Boral Sword if I had it. I don't actually have a Boral Sword, but I would probably throw that in there. Maybe another copy of Access Code Talker if you thought you needed it. Just seeing what else jumps to mind. Normally we would play things like Almirage. So what you would do with this deck is you would normal summon Alistar and then make Almirage, and then Almirage gives you a fire on the field, and Almirage is a Cyburst Link monster, so then you can use Almirage to go into, he's going to be a rare card, isn't he? Where is he? Secure Gardener is what I'm looking for. There it is. Secure Gardener. That takes one Cyberburst Elite monster, and that gives you a light monster. So you can make your own column quite easily, and then you can go into an Invoke Mekka using this as a light monster. But now that we have Artemis, the Magist, this Moon Maiden, you can just normal summon an Alistair and make this straight away. So you don't need to use that up for the deck space. Other than that, there's not really anything else that stands out to me, so feel free to fill up space with what you want. We're going to move on now into the budget version of this build, and so if you just want to try out this deck and maybe don't have a lot of resources to spend on it, but you want to see if you like it, well, this is what I would maybe run as a budget version. Now, there are some must-haves. I'm afraid you have to have Alistair to make it work, otherwise you're not playing the Invoked engine. You do need 2 invocations at least. And for the Mekk-Knights, again, you don't have to have 3 Mekk-Knight Blue Sky. You can definitely reduce that, but I would strongly recommend having at least a couple Purple Nightfalls, because that's the main linchpin of the Mekk-Knight engine. So maybe just 2 of these, and then 1 of those, and then let's add another Brain Control. So again, this is just about breaking your opponent's board and going second. Now, we don't have a lot of those big hand traps, but I do have 1 Ash Blossom, as you get it from the multi-pack. So you probably have a 1 Ash Blossom, and we have the Monster Reborn as well that you get just by playing the game. So that's in there too. But instead of having running more board breaker cards, we're having bigger monsters such as Kaijus. Now, Kaijus are monsters that can tribute your opponent's monster, so they can get rid of a threat really, really well. The cheapest ones are Raiden, Gardelar, and then we have the 3300 ones. So we're playing 6 of them in total, so that the idea is that if you have a choice of 2, you can give your opponent the weaker one, and you can have the stronger one. Now, these aren't necessarily the best Kaijus. Normally, you would play things like Gamma Seal, or you'd play Kumongus, because their attacks are lower than your Mekk-Knights. But if you don't have these cards available to you, then try the rare versions. They're a bit stronger, and you would have to be able to deal with them and get over their attacks, but it isn't impossible to deal with them. So it is definitely viable and able to do so. And then I'm also using Ancient Warrior Loyal Guan Yun. It's just a big beater. It's a Cyber Dragon. If your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then you can destroy one. If your opponent has more monsters than you can destroy 1 monster on the field. 2500 attack. It's going to help you swing for game faster. And yeah, overall it's a good big boy, beefy boy. And then we also have cards like Brain Control to take our opponent's monsters, get rid of a threat, take it to your side of the field. Of course, Brain Control was nerfed, and it can only take a monster that can be normal summoned or set, but there is a lot of good applications in that. You could take, say, an Eldritch monster. Can Eldritch be targeted? I can't remember if he's been targeted. I think he has Destruction immunity when he's summoned by his own effect. Yeah, it cannot be destroyed, so you can still take this card, or you can take a Kaiju that you've used to tribute and then take it to your side of the field, and then you can attack with that Kaiju to do a lot of damage quite easily. So Brain Control is pretty good. Other than that, for background removal, we're using Mystical Space Typhoon. Forbidden Chalice is a good negate card. And one of the big differences here is that we're playing Free World Legacy Memory. This is a really good card. It's a quick play spell that allows you to special summon 1 Mekk-Knight monster from your hand or deck in defense position, but for the rest of the turn, you are locked into Mekk-Knights. You can do this during your opponent's turn, say summon a Purple Nightfall, and then banish Purple Nightfall to search multiple monsters, and then Purple Nightfall will come back during your standby phase. So it's really, really, really versatile. Or you could just use it to put a monster on the board, and then get it back later and add it to your hand and then summon it during your turn. So it is a very, very versatile card. And then we're also playing 1 copy of the Book of the Law. This is an invoked card that allows you to tribute 1 invoked monster to special summon another one from your deck. This is going to help you OTK a lot more easier. So what you would do with this card is, say, have 1 invoked monster, say like Purgatrio, attack with it, attack all your opponent's monsters, then play invoked, then play the Book of the Law on Purgatrio, tribute it to summon up Magalenica, and then do 3000 damage with this. So it helps you just go for game very, very easily. Or even using anything like Raijin or Mekka, it helps you out a bit. Now, to help you out, make that a little bit easier, we're playing 2 copies of Alistair, the Invoker of Madness. A card we don't really need anymore, but it's still very good. To summon it, it requires 2 monsters with different types of attributes, so maybe Brain Control can help you fulfill that requirement. And then, or if not, one way that we used to do this was, oh no, they require high rarity cards, so don't worry about that. Alistair the Invoker Madness isn't too hard to summon, and then if this card is summoned, or if a monster is fusion summoned to a zone while you control this card, you can discard one card to add Invocation or Book of the Law. So you can get rid of one of your own cards, search out, most of the time you'll search out Book of the Law because you already have Invocation, and then you can get out your Book of the Law and help you with the OTK. As for the remaining cards, they're really just generic link monsters, things that when you use brain control, you can link your opponent's monster off so they don't get it back. So things like Power Code Talker or Pentastag or Berserker the Tenny, it doesn't really matter. They're just generic link monsters so that your opponent doesn't get them back. And that is the budget version of this deck that I would say you can play. So that is Mekk-Knight Invoked in a nutshell. I'm going to now switch over to a replay, but while I do that, let me talk a little bit more about how viable I think this is. It's been really good to me. I've really enjoyed playing Mekk-Knight Invoked. I think it's a great going second deck because everybody likes to go first. Oops, I loaded up the wrong game there. I apologize. That is Ace Attorney. I'm sorting out the replay. It's a very good deck. I've seen a lot of success with it in online ranked. And so I think it's very good. If you're looking for something that isn't like the holy trifecta of Tri Brigade and you're looking for something different, well, Mekk-Knights are pretty good to invest into. I'm sorry, I'm going to speed this up a bit. And yeah, so here's a game with some footage here that we could talk over. I'm just going to turn off the audio, and then we've got video game music going on, and so that's there as well. So we're playing against a guy called Nibiru. Our opening hand here, we always want to go second, but our opening hand here is Cyframe Gear Gamma. Gamma on its own isn't going to be enough to break a board, but hopefully you can draw into some board breaking cards. But anyway, my opponent doesn't have an extra deck here, so we're not playing one of the big three. So we'll see what comes out and what they are playing. Now, for me, if I see Into the Void, I'm thinking this is going to be some type of control deck. I'm expecting it's going to be something like True Draco, as that is a card I use there. He sets multiple cards to the field, and I'm going to speed through this a little bit. He plays Card of Demise at some point. No, he doesn't. He just sets 5, I think. Is he set 5 and pass? Yeah, he sets 5 and pass. Nothing really too interesting there. For our draw, we drew into, I think, Invocation. And my opponent is now going to activate Jar of Greed, and he's going to go and get Statue of Anguish Pattern. This is a weird little combo. It's not the first time I've seen it. Statue of Anguish Pattern is a trap monster, 2500 defense. And then if this card is summoned this way, it cannot be targeted by an opponent's card effects while you control another trap monster. And then if then they often combine it with another card in order to make it really, really hard to get this card off the field. But nothing really too it's Fog Blade, yeah. So they use Fog Blade, equip Fog Blade onto it so it can't be attacked, and then it negates its effect as well. So yeah, it's a weird thing, but it doesn't matter. I chose this video because I think it does enough to show you kind of how this deck works. So we're going to start off with Terraforming. Terraforming will go and get Magical Meltdown, and then Magical Meltdown will allow us to activate it, and then Magical Meltdown will go and search out Alistair the Invoker. It is a really, really good engine. If you ever have a deck that doesn't need to use the extra deck quite a lot, you could probably throw it in Alistair the Invoker plus Magical Meltdown and Terraforming, and you've got a really, really good star engine. It's very, very versatile. However, my opponent does have Force Back, so he negates the summon and gives it back to me, so I'm not going to be able to use that. And I do think I recall making a mistake here. I am going to set a card so I can start setting up my columns. So here's Purple Nightfall. However, even though I've got Purple Nightfall on the board, I'm not going to be able to attack because Fog Blade makes it so the card it's equipped to cannot be attacked. And so there's not a whole lot I can do right now. So we're going to end our turn, and then we're going to pass over to our opponent. Again, I don't think anything really happens here, so we're going to fast forward. He plays Pot Desires, draws some cards, and then he sets a couple of cards on the field. I think he spaces a long time. And so here is back to our turn. Now, in my turn, I did banish Purple Nightfall just to trigger his effect so that we can get an extra card. So I searched out a Blue Sky, and then I made our deck a little bit smaller. And here is our opponent activating another Anguish Pattern. These cards gain benefits when there are multiple things on the field. and then he's going to play Dust Tornado. It's going to destroy my Book of the Law, not worried about that. And then he's going to have another Fog Blade as well, so I'm just going to speed through this. And then Fog Blade, it means he has 2 cards on the field that can't be attacked. Purple Nightfall comes back. We then normal summon Alistair, knowing there's nothing that our opponent can really do to stop us. So we are going to use Alistair's effect, and then we're going to get rid of Purple Nightfall and banish it because I want to use that column during this turn. So off goes Purple Nightfall, and then I'm going to go and search my deck for a copy of Indigo Eclipse. And Indigo Eclipse is nice because it allows you to summon multiple monsters to the same column. So we're going to use Invocation to help us make a column. So we'll set that to the one where Fog Blade is, because we know that Fog Blade is going to stay on the field. And then we're going to summon out Indigo Eclipse. So he just drops onto the field. And then once Indigo Eclipse is on the field, we're then going to use his effect to move it from that column to a different column. So we're going to put it over on a different side, and then that column will be nice and free. I was just double checking the effect of Prime Monarch. Prime Monarch doesn't really do anything. It's mostly a graveyard revival card. So if I don't destroy it, it's not a threat to me at all. What we have to do is get past these Fog Blades and get these monsters off the field. So we go and summon out Mekk-Knight Blue Sky. And Mekk-Knight Blue Sky's effect allows us to get cards from our deck equal to the number of opponent's cards in the column. Now, when you're doing a Mekk-Knight Invoked engine this small, you have to definitely know what cards you're going to search at in what order. I would strongly recommend using Blue Sky as early as you can, because if you can do Blue Sky and get 2 cards, your only targets are going to be your 1 Indigo Eclipse and your 1 and your 3 Purple Nightfalls. So you want to use Blue Sky before your Indigo Eclipse comes out of your deck. But it's just to go plus, really, and get you more cards to your hand. So it's not a big deal if you do it in a different order. We're going to use Alistair the Evoker to do a link summon into our Artemis. And this is going to just give us an extra light monster for the graveyard, as our opponent hasn't been kind and put any monsters in the graveyard as he's playing a trap monster based deck. And so now we're going to then link summon, and this is why I have double Nightmare Phoenix, because having on-demand spell and trap removal is very, very valuable. So because we're not going to be able to search out of our main deck all the time, having Nightmare Phoenix is really good. So we're going to use the 2 monsters of different names, summon out Nightmare Phoenix. I'm going to discard a card I know I'm not going to use to destroy a card on the field. So we're going to go and get rid of Gamma, because we have monsters on the field, and therefore we can't use Gamma's effect. We could have used it earlier against one of these trap cards, but didn't really need to, because they are counted as effect monsters when they activate the effects, but it's not really that big of a deal. And so we get rid of 1 Fog Blade, so one of his cards can be attacked. I should have actually got rid of the second one, because that one was in the attack position, but it's not a big deal. We have another way to get rid of that card anyway. And so we're now going to use Nightmare Phoenix and our Mekk-Knight Indigo Eclipse to go and make Unicorn. And this is a very typical way of breaking boards for Mekk-Knights. This happens a lot. You get multiple monsters to the field easily, so you have very easy access to things like Nightmare Unicorn. And now we're going to discard a card. I'm going to get rid of a Purple Nightfall, as we can only summon 1 in each turn. And because he's playing things like Card of the Demise and Into the Void, and he also played an Upstart Goblin, Draw a Lockbird is actually viable, but we're not going to need it anyway, because we're going to try and win this turn. So we've got rid of another card, but he's still got 1 2500 attack monster on the field. So how can we get rid of that card? Well, first we're going to set Invocation, and then we're going to bring out my shiny Purple Nightfall, just to have another monster on the board. He gets a flashy effect as well. And then we're going to use our Link Free, and then I'll use our 1 monster to go and make an Access Code Talker, one of our boss monsters. It used to be for this deck that we would often go into Borrow Sword Dragon, but Access Code Talker is a lot easier to make, and it can get cards off the field as well. Although Borrow Sword Dragon is very, very viable still. It is the classic OG OTK card. And there are sometimes when I do wish I had a Borrow Sword, because Borrow Sword can double attack. It always does at least 6,000 damage every turn, so it's very, very good. Whereas Access Code Talker doesn't always do that much damage, but he can get rid of cards on the field. So we're going to use Access Code Talker to choose our Link Free. That's going to give it 3,000 attack. And then we're going to use his effect to banish a card in our graveyard, to destroy a card in our field, and our opponent will not be able to respond to this. So we get rid of Artemis as our Link 1. Goodbye Artemis. And then we're going to pop this Anguish monster. And that's all we're going to destroy for the time being. Now 2300 isn't enough for us to win this turn, so we're going to need a little bit more help. So I'm going to now actually play Invocation, and then we're going to use Invocation to make a Invoke monster. So we're going to make an Invoke Mekk-Knight. We could do Purgatory or 2, that's going to be 2500 attack, but if I don't win this turn, Mekk-Knight will have a negate. So, and in case my opponent has a monster in his hand, which is very unlikely because of the cards he's been playing, but if he did have a monster in his hand, then we can actually negate its monster effect because we can discard a monster. So we're now going to banish out Alistair and Gamma because Gamma is pretty dead in the graveyard. And then we're going to summon out our Invoke Mekk-Knight. I think I put it in the middle monster zone. I definitely don't want to do it there. Where did I put Mekk-Knight? No, I put it in the left one. That was the right place. And then Invocation is really nice because it has a graveyard-based effect where you can return one banished Alistair that's in your banish pile back to the deck to add, back to your hand to shuffle in Invocation back into your deck. And then Alistair on the next turn, if you want to, you can normal summon it in order to search out an Invocation again. So it's kind of like an infinite loop that's very, very self-sufficient. But we're not going to need that right now. We're going to attack directly. We're going to do 5-3 with access code Talker. So off you go, big boy. Do your stuff. And then we're going to use our last monster, Invoke Mekk-Knight, who right now is a little bit shy of winning. But Alistair the Invoker has one more ability. And his ability is that you can discard this card to increase the attack of one fusion monster you control by 1000. So Invoke Mekk-Knight will become 3500, and in total with access code Talker, that is going to be for 8800 damage. And that is kind of how you play Mekk-Knight Invoked. It's a very, very good deck. Very, very good deck at breaking boards. I wouldn't say it's top tier, but Mekk-Knight Invoked is very, very good, and it's definitely not the most expensive deck out there. So yeah, give it a shot, give it a try. I really, really like it, and I think it's very, very good. Anyway guys, that is going to do this video. Thank you as always for watching. If there's any decks you would like to see, let me know down below. And I'll see you soon. Take care.